I'm Robert Shuemak. I'm an advocate for people with disabilities at Hamilton County DD Services. I've been in Cincinnati, Ohio all my life.
Very nice. When were you born?
I was born in 1969 to Robert D. Shuemak Sr. and Sharon K. Shuemak in Winton Terrace here in Cincinnati.
So you grew up in Winton Terrace?
No, I actually moved from Winton Terrace when I was 2 to a small African community in Blue Ash called Hazelwood.
What did you think of Hazelwood? Did you like it?
Oh, it was the best place in the world to grow up. It was small. It was about 5 blocks wide, 6, 7 blocks deep. So it was very small. Everybody knew everybody. Not a lot of traffic. You were able to play in the street.
That sounds nice. And you lived there how long?
I lived there from the age of 2 to the age of 17.
Nice. What were your parents like? Do you have any siblings?
Yes. My father's African American, my mother's Caucasian. So my sister and I are mixed. I have a younger sister who is 2 years younger than I am.
What's your sister's name?
Her name is Roberta. My dad was a very,
Creative, maybe?
yeah, unique when it came to naming kids.
Robert
And Roberta, yeah.
Like everyone in your house is named Robert.
All right.
Where did you go to school when you lived in Hazelwood?
I was in the Sycamore School District. I went to Mapledale, which was the 1st through 4th grade. Then the middle school was called Green School. And then the junior high was called Sycamore Junior High. And then the famous Sycamore High School.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're digitizing their yearbooks right now.
All right, well, I don't know if I've been their high school yearbook, but I'm definitely in their junior high yearbook.
Nice. Did you like going to school there?
Not really, because of the year I was in school in the early 70s. So they had difficulty learning how to teach a visually impaired person how to read and do math and so on and so on. So it was very challenging. I can remember going to classes with books that were very large. They were large print. They were about 2 feet high, foot wide, and they were very cumbersome and noticeable. So I got teased a lot about, kids are cruel. Walking around with these big old books.
When were you diagnosed with your visual impairment?
Well, that's interesting because I was 2 years old before my mother found out I was visually impaired, because I don't look visually impaired. And she used to always wonder why I always sat up close to the TV, always ran into things. So she talked to my grandmother, which was her mother, and said, you know, Bobby is doing, they called me Bobby back then. Bobby is doing this, that, and the other. He's running into stuff. He's always close up on the TV. And my grandmother said, why don't you get his eyes tested? Because, you know, your uncle has optic nerve atrophy, a deadening of the optic nerves in your eyes. So they took me to the eye doctor, and I was diagnosed with bilateral optic nerve atrophy when I was 2 years old.
How did your family respond to you?
Oh, it was wonderful. My mother and my sister accepted it. My mother was the advocate for me all the way up. I mean, until about 4 or 5 years ago. My sister was the protector. I guess she felt that, hey, he doesn't see well, so I got to watch out for him. My dad was different because my dad, I think, by his actions, was disappointed that his only son could not see well, so he couldn't do the athletic type things with me. It seemed to be stressful for him to interact with me the way father and sons typically do.
Yeah, that sounds difficult. I did read a lot about how your mom supported you a lot and helped you kind of through some legal challenges and things like that too.
Well, my mother was always my advocate, and all through school she fought the school system to educate me, let me interact with the kids, not isolate me. Because back in the 70s, if you had a disability, you got a label that you had difficulties learning, difficulties doing typical tasks. They just didn't understand what you couldn't do, so they defaulted to trying to teach me how to read Braille. And I felt I had too much sight to read a bunch of bumps. So I fought against it. I began to get in trouble a lot because I wanted to learn like all the other students. And, you know, I was already discriminated against for being biracial. That was not a good time to be biracial in the 70s. It wasn't a good time to have a disability in the 70s. The technology was not really available. So it was challenging, and it didn't work out well in the early years. And I ended up dropping out of high school because it was just too frustrating. Never learned how to read typical print, which people have a hard time believing. But if you put printed material in front of me, I can't read it. I learned to read by listening. So teachers would read books to me. They would read worksheets, and I would answer verbally. So after I dropped out of high school, my mother stayed on me about going to get my GED. And at about 23, I got into a GED program through Scarlet Oaks, which was a school I went to trying to learn how to do a trade. And that didn't work well, so they couldn't figure out how to teach me construction and not being able to see well. So took my study for the GED 2 years, with two gentlemen who were African American in their 60s who could not read at all. So the teacher, who was a volunteer, taught all three of us how to read, the basics of reading. I had to learn it orally. So my spelling and grammar was horrible, and it still is. But I took the GED when I was 25, took the whole exam orally. So the person who tested me read all the questions on the exam, the math, the algebra, all of it. And I answered it orally. They put the answers down. As far as I know, I was the first one in Ohio to take the exam orally and pass. Definitely the first one in Hamilton County.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. What year did you get your GED?
I was 25, so it was like 2005, maybe. 69, 79, 89. About 2000, 1994? 95. Then for the next 5 years to 2000, I got in and out of different educational programs throughout the city that would help you learn your spelling and grammar better, your mathematics, because I just wanted to be able to read like typical people. At that time, the technology for people who were visually impaired and blind, they had a screen reader that came out for computers in 2004, 5 maybe. So I got connected with the rehabilitation program for people with disabilities. And they got me computer training so I can learn how to use a computer with a screen reader called JAWS. JAWS is a software program that's put on the computer, and it reads all the printed material on the computer. Use key combinations to do it, to make the screen reader read the different parts of the screen that you want to read. In 2000, I went to my counselor at the Bureau for Services for the Visually Impaired and told her I wanted to go to college. My mother has a college degree from Purdue University, and she said, well, have you ever thought about college? I said, oh, no. High school was horrible. If they couldn't teach me in high school, how would they be able to teach me in college? And so I thought about it for a while. She kept encouraging me. So I went to my counselor and I said, I would like to try to go to college and see how it would work. You know, maybe I can learn a trade, not a trade, but get a degree and get a job that would be fulfilling. And I could make some money and wouldn't have to live on Social Security and disability all my life. So my mother, and myself applied for the University of Cincinnati with assistance from BSVI in the year of 2000. That was the last year that they had open enrollment. Excuse me. Where you could just walk in, sign up, and be accepted. I did not have to take the SAT or the SCT?
And it's the SAT and the ACT.
ACT, there you go. See how long it's been. So that was a blessing because in 2001, there was no more open enrollment. So I was able to get in, have my course load, failed everything except introduction to college. Because it was a pass-fail, and, you know, all you have to do is show up every day. So I passed that one. Got a little bit discouraged. My mother said, don't worry about it. You haven't been to school in a long time. You weren't taught well. Just go back in the fall, you know, and I had got connected with what they call the Disability Services, AUC. It was a very, very small service. It was a hole in the wall, 2 people, a director and somebody who was like a secretary. And I went into the office my freshman year, and I said to the lady, I need A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. These are the supports I need. And I never will forget later on, and you know, after I had graduated, she said, you know, the one thing I remember about you is you were so cocky. When you came into my office and demanded, you know, you needed books on tapes, you needed somebody to read the books to you, you needed somebody to help you with note-taking and tests, and, you know, and at that time they were just, you know, providing all these accommodations. You had to be evaluated to see what you needed. And of course I was right about what I needed. So the second year, I met what they call my accommodation coordinator, and he was someone with a disability. He had cerebral palsy, and he could still walk. but he was an inspiration to me because I had never met a person with a disability who had a PhD in American history. Now, asking myself, why did you choose that? I don't see the point. But he was a professor. He loved history. He loved to read. He said, you know, let me tell you something, Robert. Mr. Shuemak is what he called me. You can do anything you want to do. You just have to find a different way to do it. He said, in order to be successful, you have to look successful. You have to act successful. And it will manifest. And with hard work and persistence, you'll be able to achieve all the goals you want. And to hear that from somebody who didn't know me, that put the spark in me to work hard and learn.
That's really inspiring. That's so nice to have someone like that. What was his name?
Dr. Matthew Sauer. And we still talk today. He still works at UC as an accommodation coordinator for Claremont County College.
Very nice. I'm backing up just a little bit through this journey. Did you have a sense of what your life would be like in the future? What you wanted to do when you got older?
No, up until probably 25 or so when I started taking the GED. You know, I had worked for Goodwill Industries. That didn't work out well. They had somebody who was visually impaired, myself, sorting women's shoes by color and style. I don't see very well at all. You know, my mother said, what the hell, what's the purpose? He can't do that. And so I stopped working there. I used to love to volunteer. My mother was a education coordinator at Head Start here in Hamilton County. So she worked for the Hamilton County Head Start. And she was always in charge of teachers and finding resources in the community to donate different products, clothes, food, educational products, pencils, pens, for the kids and their families. Because Head Start catered to the low-income family. So I got to watch my mother doing all of this. I said, you know what? I think I might be able to do this. I might be able to help people find resources in their communities. So I volunteered a lot with her and at her job. And then when I went to college, you know, they were like, okay, Mr. Shuemak, what do you want to major in? I said, I'm not really sure, but I think I want to do social work because the type of work my mother did was very similar to social work. So I had a major, and I focused on that. But of course, first 2 years I had to get all the, what do they call them?
The gen eds, maybe the general
yeah,
education
the core courses,
requirements.
the English, the math, the history, all that irrelevant stuff to social work that I felt at the time. So because I had never been really educated very well, a number of the courses I had to take twice, which wasn't a problem because I have to learn auditorily, so repetition is good for me. You know, I can't hear it once and, excuse me, and remember it. So the more times I can hear it, the better.
Nice. So, at the University of Cincinnati, can you talk to me? How long did you go there? When did you graduate? How was that experience?
I went there from 2000 to 2007. I actually graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work, mental health, in 2005. And my friend, Dr. Sauer, he said, well, Bob, you're on a roll. I'm sorry. So why don't you apply for the master's program? I said, you know, well, I don't know if I want to do all that. He said, well, it'll give you more experience in education. And the key was, he said, you can make more money. So I was down with that. So I applied to the master's program. In 2001, I got married. And my wife and I were both going to college at UC. She was in fashion design, I was in social work. We had a son in 2002 named Darnell. He was the oldest. And unfortunately, my wife passed in 2005, right when I was getting ready to graduate. She died 2005, May 15th. I was supposed to graduate June 10th. So I had to put my grief on hold. For about, I would say, 30 days until I finished the exams and got ready to graduate. I was able to walk on time. Finished my degree with a 3.8, which was incredible considering where it started. And after I graduated, I went into therapy, grief counseling, so I could deal with her death and having to raise my 2-year-old son on my own. At that time, my mother was back in Indiana taking care of her aging parents. My grandfather had got real sick and lost his vision and wasn't mobile anymore, so she spent 2 years in Indiana taking care of them, and I had to move out of our house that my wife and I had and move into a very small bedroom apartment with my 2-year-old son and trying to raise a 2-year-old who didn't understand that Daddy couldn't see and Daddy couldn't walk much anymore. That was difficult, so it was frustrating. My sister has stepped in and helped and took him. I tried to finish school, but it got too tough for her, so she brought him back. I was going to school, working on my master's. I was 3 quarters away from finishing the master's, and I had to drop out because I had no support for my son. You know, the daycares at that time were pretty strict about when you picked up your son. All the graduate classes were at night. So I got irritated, frustrated, dropped out. Didn't finish the master's. Never went back. Just tried to raise my son, continued to learn how to improve my computer skills.
You've been through a lot, it sounds like.
I would say so.
Yeah.
But you know what? Although I face many, many, many barriers, those are the lessons that we need to learn in order to progress and get better and achieve all the goals we have in our lives.
Yeah, I love your optimism. Can I ask you how you met your wife? What was your wife's name?
Her name was Yvette Hargrove. We met, it's funny, we actually met at a bus stop. I was sitting at the bus stop with her cousin, who I knew from a friend of mine that he was dating. And she walked up and he introduced me, and my bus pulled up, so I hopped on the bus. And he said, Bob, my cousin want to holler at you. And I said, well, give her my phone number. And she called me later on, and we arranged to meet up and go to Uno's, which was, at that time, a pizza place downtown here across from the Airnoff Center. I don't think it's there anymore. But that's where our first date was. We ended up getting married 4 months later. I had always wanted to be married, so it was a no-brainer, and we got along well. We were married 4 years before she passed.
Do you mind if I ask how she passed away?
She had a blood clot that traveled from her leg to her lung that suffocated her.
Sorry.
She died on the psych ward at Goosham Hospital. She had psychological disabilities, primarily depression and PTSD. So she had a lot of mental health challenges. I thought at the time, because I was studying mental health, that I could help solve her problems. And it didn't turn out that way. You learn that you can help someone all you want, but they have to put in the work.
Yeah, that is true. When was your son born? What's his birthday?
Well, my oldest son was born in 2002. I also have a younger son that was born in 2012, so he's 13.
What's your younger son's name?
William M. Shuemak.
Nice. What are they up to now? What do they do?
Well, Darnell works in the kitchen of a nursing home as a chef's assistant. And he does very well at that job. He has some disabilities. He has learning disabilities. He didn't graduate high school, so he's been working in nursing homes. He's very good at cooking. He likes it.
Are you too close?
As close as young people could be today, I guess. You know, a lot of young people, in my experience, primarily focus on themselves. Not all of them, but my son does, so.
Yeah.
And then my teenager is very intelligent. He's a lot like me in a lot of ways. As far as education, academics, very intelligent. I just wish he didn't spend so much time on screens.
You wish you didn't spend so much time on screens.
Yeah, on computers
Yeah.
and phones, playing video games.
Now that's a teenager for you, right? Can you talk to me about, you had your son in 2012. Do you have another partner, or did you marry again?
No, well, I did, but I married to 2009 and probably was divorced in 2010. And that was a mistake. We had no kids together. We were just not a match. I was lonely. Probably reached out and accepted some stuff I wouldn't do now. So that didn't last long.
You seem really good at reflecting on these things. I appreciate your just sort of honesty and your matter-of-factness about it. When did you had your son in 2012, you were married and divorced in 2009 to 2010, and then your son came along in 2012?
Right. I was in a relationship with another woman. And ironic as it is, she had schizophrenia. So, I don't have a problem with people who have disabilities because in my mind, we all deal with something. As far as disabilities are concerned, I haven't met anyone yet without some kind of disability.
That's a really interesting take, I think?
Well, people think of, and I'll answer your question, but people think of disability as something we can see. It's quite obvious. I use a power chair for mobility, so okay, it's a disability. But for somebody who is walking and, looks what people quote as normal, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There are two different types of disability categories. Visual disabilities that you can see, and non-visual disabilities like mental health that you can't see, that are disabilities of the mind, of the brain, of your nervous system, or so, yeah. So his mother has schizophrenia, and we didn't last because she had difficulties with managing her mental illness. So we still are sociable today. We talk every now and then and get along. We just can't be together.
I understand. So we've been talking kind of more about your personal life at the moment. Can you sort of tell me, so you graduated college in 2005, but then you said you went back for your master's, didn't complete that. Can you talk about maybe the transition from finishing college into your career as a disability advocate?
Yes.
Do you need a break or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, sure.
I just need to drink every now and then.
Yeah, please.
It's interesting because in 2006/7, I had to do an internship with my master's program. And, I was talking to the professor who was in charge of finding internships for everybody. And I said, well, we need to make sure it's accessible for the power chair. It needs to be in a place I could get to by a bus. Those were my two main criteria. So we had to choose between three different places. There was a drop-in center that was downtown. There was the Jewish Vocational Center, which was a shelter workshop for people with developmental disabilities. And then the last one was it Goodwill? And I chose Jewish Vocational Center. It was at Blue Ash. The bus went there. And I just had to roll in the building because the bus went in the parking lot, which was convenient, made it very accessible. I was familiar with the Blue Ash area because I grew up out there. So I went there. I was practicing mental health therapy with the people there. I had two people I worked with. And I just talked to them about their thoughts, their experiences, and any issues they might have had. So we meet with my supervisor once a week, and he said to me before we started reviewing the cases that I was working on, he said, I'm curious, have you ever thought about being an advocate professionally? I said, no, I never thought about it because I wanted to do therapy. I wanted to help people figure out what was going on with them, how to improve their lives through therapy. Because therapy was a big stepping stone in my life. So he said, okay, I'll tell you what, I got a associate at Hamilton County DD Services that I want you to meet. They got an event coming up. I want you and I to go and you can meet him. His name was John Romer. I met him at Hamilton County Developmental Disabilities Services. I really didn't know anything about advocacy except how my mother modeled advocating for me when I was in school. And I didn't realize that advocacy was such a broad topic, and it was very well needed for people with disabilities. So I met him, I started volunteering, in different projects they were working on. Telling my story as a person with a disability. Back in 2001, I started receiving services from Hamilton County DD Services, which I still have now. So I knew about them, I didn't know exactly everything they did. Definitely didn't know they had advocates. So I started volunteering, getting in the program, learning more and more about advocacy. And then once I dropped out of school, John Romer asked if I wanted to continue volunteering with them. And I started getting more and more opportunities to go out to the community and tell my story. I'll talk about the technology I was using. And then in 2008, he was able to get us paid monthly for advocating. So that's how I started.
Yeah. It sounds like you've had a couple people that were really instrumental in kind of getting into that next step. You said Dr. Maurer is his name?
Sour like sauerkraut.
Gotcha. Like sauerkraut. Yeah, Dr. Sauer, and then this guy, John Romer, is his name? Oh, nice. Are there any other kind of major people who are influential in your life or for your career or encouraged you?
Well, one person that comes to mind, and I wish I could have found him, but his name was, it comes to me. It was my mobility and rehabilitation specialist. He taught me when I was a kid how to navigate my community and somebody who was blind. I was walking back then. So he taught me how to pay attention to where I was going, how to use a cane, how to figure out my directions, whether I was going northeast, south, or west. When now with the GPSs, nobody has to do that. But I can still do it either way. So that was probably, besides my mother, the second person who was inspirational and had taught me skills that I still use.
That's nice. There is a question that actually Lisa added here. How did you feel as you learned to speak up for your needs and teach others about advocacy? How did you feel as you became an advocate for other people?
How did I feel
How did you feel?
as being an advocate for others? Well, it makes me feel good to help people learn how to speak up for themselves for something as simple as what I want to wear today, what I want to have for breakfast. You know, because a lot of people we serve don't always get that choice. You know, people, their staff prepares whatever, puts out their clothes, make a lot of choices. And to be able to teach other people with all kinds of disabilities how to advocate for themselves is incredible. It gives you a good warm feeling to know you help somebody advocate for themselves.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really rewarding to see other people succeed and help them succeed.
You know, I tell people all the time, this does not feel like work to me. Because it's something I do naturally, something I get pleasure out of. And everybody wants to have a job they love. And then when you love what you do, it don't feel like work. You know, it makes you feel like, wow, I'm getting paid for doing this.
I know how you feel. Can you kind of talk about your kind of work up to the present?
Sure.
From about
You mentioned technology earlier. I am a huge advocate for accessible technology. Without technology, I would not be able to do what I do now. I would not have made it through college. I would not have been able to do my job. I'm what they call an advocate advisor. So I work with advocates one-on-one, in groups, present at conferences. I assist people with accessible technology, accessible transportation, and mobility in the community. So I work closely with the Metro system, which is our fixed route and parent transit systems to make sure that people with disabilities are respected. They have access to the transportation system. Because there are a lot of stigmas still in the community about people with disabilities. So, like I said, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm doing what God asked me to do and teach and be kind to others. Help them learn how to move through life the way they want to go through life. And practice making their own choice, whether it's about what they want to wear, what they want to eat, where they want to go, how they want to get there. It's just really joyful.
Yeah, that sounds joyful. Just for the sake of the camera and clarifying, you're an advocate advisor at the Hamilton County Developmental Disabilities Office. Am I saying that name correctly?
All except for offices, services.
And then you have been in that role. Can you tell me, like in a complete sentence, how long you've been in that role? I've been an advocate advisor since.
I've been an advocate advisor at Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services for 18 years.
Wow, that's a long time, 18 years. Yeah, I know. Every time I say the name, I think I say it slightly differently, so I need to learn it.
Well, the easiest way to say it is Hamilton County DD Services.
Mm-hmm.
And just know that DD stands for Developmental Disability.
I want to kind of back up in time just a little bit. Some of our focus here in this narrative is about the ADA. Do you remember when the ADA was passed in 1990? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would love to hear like kind of your experience of life before the ADA and after, or just your feelings around it.
Well, it's interesting because before the ADA, I still got a certain amount of services, but they weren't in law. So, of course, back in, I believe it was 75, the Educational Act came into play, and it said that all people had to have the opportunity to be educated, whether they had disabilities or not. So that was the precursor to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then for the next 15 years, there were a lot of advocates that fought for the American with Disabilities Act. Finally, it got signed into law in 1990. At that time, I wasn't into understanding what the ADA was all about until I probably got to college. And then I realized, well, the ADA impacted my life drastically when I took my GED in '95, because it allowed them to say, okay, he's legally blind. What kind of accommodations that we need to provide for him? It's a state exam, and they provided me with the same accommodation I had back in high school, where they read the test to me. I give them the answers, and they write them down. Without the ADA, they wouldn't have to do that. They would say, well, you can't take it because you can't see the exam, so sorry. But because of the ADA, I was able to take the exam. The ADA helped begin to change access to the bus system by adding ramps, by adding verbal prompts of what bus it was, the stops. I mean, ADA is a very thick document. It provides accommodations for housing, for community engagement, vehicles, public transportation, almost anything you can think of. Education is a big one. But the one thing I will say is it's 35 years old. It needs to be revised to the times we're in now. It allows for technology to be accessed by people with disabilities, the internet, or cell phone. People always ask me, well, did you have to have a special cell phone? No. The iPhone and the Android has built-in accessibility features. You just have to turn them on. So the iPhone, which I use, makes the world accessible in many, many ways. I can use my phone just like you do, except mine talks. I can give a voice command. So the ADA has provided people with all disabilities access to every part of our community, our lives, our jobs, education.
Yeah. In your opinion, what needs to change about the ADA in the present? Can you think of you mentioned technology, but do you have specific?
It needs to be revised and updated to the standards of the way we live today. the accessibility to buildings, to parks, swimming pools, all that needs to be updated. The problem with the ADA in the past has always been there are minimum standards. These are the minimums of what you need to provide. The ADA probably needs to be reworded to say somehow that you need to go. Here's the standard, but it makes it more accessible if you go beyond the standard. For instance, a doorway needs to be, I believe it's 38 inches wide, standard length for wheelchairs, for power chairs. Well, power chairs are being made bigger, wider, so that needs to be accommodated for. So you just can't say that all doorways should be a standard 38 inches. You move it out to 40, 42 inches. That will accommodate a lot more power chairs. And there's a thing out there called universal design, which says that buildings, community areas where people gather need to be fully accessible. I think if you get it more into specific language, when you're talking about what is accessibility, one of the clarifications needs to be that accessibility means having equal and clear access to something, whether it's a building, whether it's the internet, whether it's a phone, because accessibility means one thing to me and something to someone else. I've been told, well, our church is accessible. And then when I get there, I've got a step to go up. Well, yeah, it's accessible to someone who could make go up one step. But it's not accessible for a power chair or a wheelchair. So in my experience, accessibility needs to be identified across the board. You know, if you make everything without a no-step entrance, you're good, because then everybody can get in the building. The mother with a stroller, the man who delivers the pop, people with disabilities, then you don't have any issues. You know, I think if buildings would make their doors accessible, like they have at the library, where you walk through the door and it opens automatically. That makes it 100% accessible for anyone. Instead of having a button over there. Well, if you're blind, you can't see the button. So that makes it inaccessible.
I think these are things that people do not consider. I think that these things are people take for granted.
And that's why I was asked to be a part of the Cincinnati Zoo Advisory Committee for Accessibility. And because I am visually impaired and use a power chair, I have a unique perspective of what it's like to navigate the Cincinnati Zoo as someone who's blind and use a power chair. So they value people with disabilities, thoughts, opinions, and they're trying to make the changes to accommodate people with disabilities, whether they're autistic, whether they use power chairs, deaf, blind, whatever it may be.
Yeah, Robert, that was my next question actually, was if you do consultation about technology. This is kind of off the record, but something I would maybe love to talk to you about in the future is some technology here and about some guidelines around accessibility. You mentioned universal design. My master's thesis was about universal design for library technology. And yeah, it would be really fascinating to have a perspective on that. Do you do technology consultation like that?
Yeah, I do accessibility consulting. I do accessible technology consulting because I'm also a Ohio Technology Ambassador. And it's a program created by Hamilton County, Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities. And there are advocates around the state of Ohio who advocate and talk about the accessible technology they use in everyday life, whether it's education, work, entertainment, and community engagement. So, I've been on several boards and committees, and I always say, well, that's all well and good, but I can't read the agenda. And in official meetings, people don't like to read the agenda. They feel like everybody can read it, but then that leaves people like myself out. So to be able to use the technology that's available, that's also accessible, to read the agendas, the items on the screen, because everybody uses PowerPoints. So as an accommodation, I always get access to the PowerPoint beforehand. I get it afterhand. I tell a lot of people, well, if you're going to present, you need to describe the PowerPoint. So I've had good luck with that, and the key is as long as you advocate for yourself and it's reasonable, the majority of people don't have a problem with it.
You were telling me about that guidance counselor who called you cocky for coming into the office and, requesting the things that you need to succeed. Yeah, it feels like that was, I don't think it's cocky to demand the things that everybody else gets, right?
Right.
And
Well,
that's
but
kind of what you just said.
yeah, it was just being new, and I guess they never had anyone come to them and know already what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably a shock to them, so, it was a little standoffish, I guess. Would it be all right if I took a break and went to the restroom real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I only have
All
a few
right.
more questions after that, and then we can wrap up. What I wanted to ask you from the previous conversation that we were having was, for my own curiosity, can you kind of run through quickly an overview of the technology you use every day that helps your life? Like, what are some key things you always use?
Oh, well, I always use my computer, of course, screen reader called JAWS. It allows the computer, allows me to have access to all aspects of the computer, my email, the documents that I create, review. It allows people to send me things and I can read it. Always ask them, what is it you like to do? And then based on what they say, you say, well, there's a technology, an app for your phone that you can download and allow you to do A, B, and C. While I'm thinking about it, the one issue I think I have with the library is that some of the technology that we use now to access the library, movies, videos, the audiobooks, the e-books, is a little cumbersome. It's a little difficult to access. The Libby app could be a lot more accessible than what it is. I haven't used the Libby app in a while because there are so many other apps that have the same content as the public library that are much easier to access. So I'd be more than happy to work with you guys on the Libby app and how we can make it accessible even more for people with developmental disabilities. CB, because I don't think it gets utilized enough. I have difficulties with, a number of times I've tried to get the library to allow me to be able to access the professional journals. I guess I'm a nerd, education nerd. So I love to read the technology journals, the mental health, the medical journals that you guys have on file. And it's just not an easy process to get the journals and go through them and access them on a regular basis. I mean, in the past, probably a year ago, they had to email them to me. And then because of the format they were in, they were difficult to access. So I just gave up on it. And so it's a little easier to go to the library, get the physical journal, and have somebody read it. And in today's age, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, there's a huge emphasis on everything being digital now, but yeah, I don't think people realize how the implications of that for folks who don't have the option to read it in certain ways.
Well, and you got people who are sighted, and people who are very efficient with the system that you guys use, making those decisions and choices. And I think it would be to the library's benefit to have a group of people with disabilities that they say, okay, tell us how we can improve this system, that system. What are some thoughts and ideas? And then take that feedback back to the board and say, hey, this is what we got. How can we make this happen? You know, we can improve the access of the library's digital platforms to people with disabilities by doing A, B, and Z. And if you think about it, the change would not be expensive, especially if you think about it on the front end, instead of after it's been implemented, then saying, oh, we got to change this. And that works with your websites, that works with any digital platform. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. We need some kind of like advisory board or, you know, a group of people who can give feedback on library systems.
And there's a lot of us advocates out here that are more than happy to do that with all kinds of disabilities. You know, one of the biggest things that are out there now is the artificial intelligence. And there are a lot of security issues with it, I understand that. But AI has made a number of things a lot more accessible to people with disabilities, especially those of us who don't have good grammar and spelling. You just tell AI, hey, I need a paper on accessibility in the community, and it pulls the information down. You pick and choose what pieces you want. So, you know, that technology, and I love the technology of the dictation software that the iPhone has built in to where you can send a text message audibly, whether you dictate it or you send an audio file. So both of those formats are game changers to a lot of us. I mean, texting nowadays, I don't understand a lot of texts that people say because they don't write in words, they write in acronyms.
Or emojis.
Yeah, and I write in full sentences. So if you get a text from me, it'll probably have commas and periods in it.
Yeah, how do you dictate emojis? Do emojis have alt text?
Well, you actually can dictate emojis. You know, if you send a text message, you just say how things are going, and you just say, well, smiley face emoji, and then puts it in there.
Nice. I know I asked you this before, but I think we got cut off on the camera, so I'll ask again. What are the pieces of technology that you use every day? Like, what are the key pieces that help your life?
I use an iPhone now for a lot of messaging and checking emails, responding to emails, responding to texts. I pay bills through a Cash App. I transfer money from bank account to an app. The GPS system I use a lot. You know, I can ask Siri, where am I? It says, you're at 800 Walnut Street. So, it can give me a precise, on the southwest corner of 8th Street or something like that. So it could give me, it does a lot of things that people have no clue about. And a lot of things with the iPhone you have to just test. And then I use a computer on a regular basis every day with a screen reader. Reads all the information on the screen. I also use Alexa devices. I don't use the Alexa shows with the screens because I can't see a screen anyway. So I use the actual speakers. And I use it for podcasts. I use them for Sirius XM radio. I have it connected to that so I can listen to baseball games, football games, talk shows, music, audio books. And your Alexa can connect to almost anything. And then I just got a pair of, they're called Meta Ray-Ban glasses. And they are glasses that were made for virtual reality technologies. They have camera in it, microphone, speaker. But somebody used them and say, hey, this would be good for the blind. So you can actually take a picture. If I said, hey, Meta, tell me what you see, it would take a picture and describe the picture to me. So it would say, if I were looking at you, it would tell me, that you're an African-American woman or a white woman with a dark blue blouse and white pants, something like that. And then I could say, well, give me more detail. And it would tell me you have brown hair or, so that's a game changer. It can send you text messages. You can make phone calls. I've never been able to read paper money. So I could hold up a $10 bill in front of the glasses. It'll take a picture and tell me it's a $10 bill. So it's a game changer. And that technology, Meta is not the only one that makes it. Google has glasses coming out. I heard that Apple is going to make a pair. But one of the issues is with technology that is made specifically for people with disabilities, it's very expensive. Mm-hmm. But the Meta Ray-Ban glasses were not made for people with disabilities. So it's a heck of a lot cheaper. They're only $300 a pair. And your insurance can pay for it. Which is BSVI, they can pay for it. Or you can go to Best Buy and buy them. So I'm trying to promote for people who don't read and print, who are blind, dyslexic. These can help you in many, many ways. It can actually, I'm also colorblind. So I can't tell anything but light and dark. So if I go to my closet and pull out a shirt and say, hey, Meta, what color is this shirt? It'll tell me. If I want details, it'll say, well, it's a navy blue, it's a light blue, it's an ocean blue. So that's a game changer for somebody like me. And those are same, but some of the technologies I use. I do automatic door openers that are controlled by Alexa or Siri. I have a microwave that I can say, Alexa, start microwave for 2 minutes. I have an air fryer that I can do that with. There are coffee makers, washer dryers. So nowadays, anything you want to connect Alexa or Siri to, you can just about.
That is fascinating about those glasses. Yeah, those are amazing pieces of
I'm
technology.
sorry,
No,
am I
it's
moving too much?
No, it's not your fault. It's my fault.
Just dancing, flailing. No, I didn't even consider the glasses, and yeah, that you can connect appliances to smart stuff. Yeah, like Bluetooth connection.
Madison and I went to, I think it was Warren County, and they have what they call a smart home. So in this smart home, they have all these devices that you could connect Google to or Alexa to, and you know, they have like the sinks, they have toilets, they have it divided into bedroom, bathroom, living room, kitchen. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
Like you could say, Alexa, flush the toilet, or Alexa, turn the shower on, or.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm actually, thermostats are not accessible to me. So I'm actually getting a thermostat installed that's Alexa controlled. So I can say, Alexa, turn AC to 69 degrees. Boom, and do it, just like that.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, yeah, we've talked a lot about technology. Is there any more you wanted to talk about your like advocacy around technology, or anything you're currently working on? Or I'll end with some kind of general questions about advocacy, some that Lisa drafted also. And, you know, of course, if there's anything else you feel like we didn't talk about, I would love to talk about that too. But
I'm also a big advocate for people focusing on their mental health. Because if you don't focus on your mental health, it's difficult to get done what you need to get done in a day. So, you know, technology can also be used to help people with mental health issues. You know, there are times where I recommend to people, you know, download the Calm app. And it plays calm music or rain sounds, and that will help you focus on relieving stress or just being calm and peaceful in your own space. I always recommend that people see a therapist. You can see therapists online now, so you don't even have to leave your house to get connected to a therapist. Just to have somebody to talk to and work out issues with. You know, because we all need support from others. How can I figure out how I could go from my house to this place. And if you just talk to somebody, it doesn't have to be a therapist, but if you talk to a friend or a family member, they can help you solve that issue. Humans are not solitary people. We are meant to deal with groups. We are meant to learn in groups. There's a whole idea about people being by themselves. All the studies say that people with disabilities are the loneliest group because they're so isolated. So one of our big advocacy movements with Hamilton County DD Services is to make sure that people with disabilities that we serve and any person with a disability is integrated into community, people like themselves, and also people who don't have the same challenges.
Yeah, that I can absolutely see that as an important perspective. Yeah, and interesting too that technology can also assist with that, and just like you said, seeing a therapist online and having that be a little bit more accessible for everyone, maybe.
Well, it makes people feel a little more comfortable if you're familiar with technology. And you know, there's so many ways. A lot of these big companies like Apple, Amazon, Google have what they call accessibility lines. So it's a number that if you're a person with a disability and you're having difficulty with certain piece of your phone, you call in and say, okay, how do I get to, my messages on my iPhone? And they'll log into your phone and they will direct you verbally and visually, if you want, on how to get to your messages and do whatever. I use them all the time. I use Amazon and Apple a lot. And most places, your insurances, and they will accommodate. All you have to do is ask. So, hey, like I call Spectrum. It's a cable service, but I also get my phone service through them. And they say, well, if you use the automated system, you can pay your bill. Well, the automated system is not accessible to somebody who can't put in phone numbers fairly quickly. So I go to the operator, I say, look, it don't allow me the time to put in my credit card number. Can you take my payment on the phone? Well, it'll be $5. Well, I said, well, you need to waive that because your system is not accessible to me. And typically they go ahead and do it as an accommodation. But people don't know that unless you ask. And that's a part of advocating for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like that's a theme, like being able to say, nope, this is what I need and this is an accommodation. And like I keep, that story of that counselor keeps sticking with me that people are so not used to people advocating for themselves that they think it's cocky or standoffish when they do. And yeah, I think that's just something I was picking up from you talking. I think we're right around 1 o'clock, so I want to be mindful of your time. Some of the last questions on here, some that Lisa drafted, might be a good way to end too. What would you say is your greatest advocacy accomplishment or some of maybe your most memorable successes as an advocate?
There are so many. But one that really stands out to me and I'm proud of is because I'm visually impaired, I use a power chair. I used to ride the metro everywhere, the buses, you know, big 40-foot ones. And it was so hard for me to get on the ramp that they let out. So I went to the, you know, I don't mess around. I went to the CEO of Metro. And I've known him for years. And I said, you know what would be really helpful to not only me, because I'm not trying to get you to make a change for me, so I don't say me. I said, what would be helpful to people who are visually impaired or people who have issues with orientation, not knowing, not being able to judge real well where they're walking. Put a big, thick white or yellow stripe down the middle of the ramp so somebody with a visual impairment can see and know that line is the middle, and if you go up the middle of the line, you're going to be right on with the ramp. Don't have to worry about falling off. Because I have fallen off of the bus a couple times because the person forgot to put down the ramp. And fortunately, I have not been hurt. But, you know, it's a learning experience for me and for the drivers. And you don't know what you don't know, so you have to, as an advocate, educate them. That's probably one of the biggest ones.
You said you've worked with Metro for how long? Or have been an advocate to Metro or a consult to Metro?
Probably about 20 years now. Yeah.
Nice.
You know, and I've got friends that call me and say, well, they don't have a bus stop at this stop, and so I'll make a call to somebody who's in charge of putting out the bus stops. And I say, hey, can you put a bench at this bus stop? You know, I have a friend with a disability, and they can't stand up long periods of time, and, you know, and they can do it. I actually had another example. I used to live at the corner of Reading Road and Dana Avenue, and the bus stop was across the street. And I got off the bus and was getting ready to cross the street. And when that happened, a car was coming and almost hit me. I had the light, but you can turn on right. And I guess they wasn't paying attention. And they almost hit me, and the bus driver saw it. She got off the bus, which you're not supposed to do, came over and walked me across the street. And then when I got home, I called Metro and told them about what happened, so on and so on. And in 2 days, they had moved the bus stop that was up above my house down right in front of my house. So when I get off the bus, I'm right there in front of my door, and I don't have to cross the street. So that's just an example of when you advocate for change in your community on a large level or a small level, you just have to make people aware. And the key words with advocacy is accessibility and safety. Them 2 words will get a lot done. Because big agencies don't want to be known for not being safe or accommodating.
Well, we've talked a lot about kind of your career, your advocacy work. Do you have any more that you would like to say about any other accomplishments or challenges or words of wisdom?
I guess the one thing I would say to encourage people with disabilities, just know that life in general, whether you have a disability or not, is challenging. We always face some kind of challenges, but the challenges are there to help you grow and learn and move forward. Without challenges, life would be boring. You know, you would have no reason to get up in the morning, you know, if you don't face challenges. And the key is not to get upset, angry. The key is to, okay, here's a challenge. How do I go over it, get around it, or through it? And that helps you stay calm on an even keel and get work done. Sometimes you can do it individually. A lot of times you have to do it in a group way. And one of the biggest things as advocates that we have to do that I really don't enjoy is politicking. We have to interact with politicians. You can write letters and send emails all day long, but the most impactful way to get a legislator to move is to go in front of them and tell them your story. And they can relate to it because they know somebody who's going through the same thing or something similar. Because everybody knows somebody with a disability.
All right, Robert, well, unless there's any final thoughts you'd like to say, I think that's all my questions for you.
I would just like to say I commend you guys for doing this. This is awesome. I think it's going to be very popular. It's going to help educate the whole community on people with disabilities, what they're capable of, and how you as a citizen can be supportive of what people with disabilities can do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for your time, and thank you for, helping us shape this narrative too. And I'm really glad Lisa put us all in touch. This is going to be a really interesting and cool project.
Yep, and I think I can't wait to see it actually.
Thanks. Yeah. Lisa sent us a lot of great photos too, a lot of great newspaper articles. So I think we're really going to have fun telling the stories around not only Cincinnati and the services here, but also the impact of the ADA. And now I love this technology focus too. So I'll be eager to talk to Diana today also.
Right. Well, and let me know if you want to get together and help the library become more
I will definitely reach out to you.
accessible technology-wise.
Yes, I would.
Because I tried years ago, because you guys used to have, you used to actually have a technology
Yes, that's right.
area years ago. And for some reason that got vanished. But I think if you brought it back, made it maybe broadcast it or advertise it more, people would use it. I think it went away because not enough people used it. I used to use it all the time.